I'll go through it very quickly. It sort of tells you a little bit about the company and some of the things that we've done and some of the problems we've maybe overcome. So we make video games, so very similar to Digital Goldfish, very much focused on mobile. So that's primarily iPhone, Android, Windows Mobile. We also do stuff on Nintendo DS, Sony PSP, and most of the team that we've got have either come directly from Abertay as graduates, or they've been involved in the console game industry. So myself and Mark have both come from console, working on games like Grand Theft Auto and things like that. So there's a lot of good games companies obviously within Scotland. How we started, I mean basically I was at a mobile publisher called iPlay, and decided that after 5 years of working there that I was pretty bored, and so I left my job and set up the company with 2 other guys, and we did it basically by getting bank loans and funding it off our mortgages and that kind of stuff. So it wasn't bootstrapped, we had no money when we started, so it was kind of very straightforward. We raised some initial investment in 2007, so a relatively small amount of money, and when we wrote this we had 9 full-time employees, but we've got 16 now. We'll probably be up to about 20 by Christmas, so we're growing quite nicely, but not too fast. What do we do? Well, we make video games, basically, as I said, focus on mobile games, and I think we've now created in 4 years about 25 games, I think it is now. We're also branching out at the moment into applications as well, so we've got non-games content, so we're making some content based on television shows and movies and corporate apps as well, lifestyle things as well. We did the Virgin Atlantic app, which basically allows you to see where your flights are on a 3D globe and things like that. Yeah, in terms of our business model, actually quite interesting. We're probably one of the only studios that kind of mix up original IP with work for hire. So we'll do work for the clients such as Virgin, working with Square Enix, another video games publisher. We're working with the BBC and Channel 4 in the UK as well at the moment. But we'll also create our own content, which is quite important. So some of our own stuff that we've done. Probably the most successful one has been Carjack Streets, which is now on iPhone, and we're just about to start work on the sequel of that, which is kind of a Grand Theft Auto type game. So our motivation for setting up the business, 5 years ago or so when I'm thinking about setting up Tag, it was a case of looking at it and saying, well, 50% of people play the game on the mobile phone, but only 4% of people paid for it. So a massive opportunity there. And with the iPhone, I think we've seen for the first time, mobile really kind of coming of age. People are using the iPhone more than just making a phone call. They're playing games, they're downloading apps.
This statistic is in United Kingdom or worldwide?
Which the one here? This was for Europe, I think. I mean, this is quite old now, so I'm not quite sure. This is for Europe. This is obviously well out of date now, so this was kind of looking ahead to next year and saying that mobile games will be worth $17.6 billion. I'm not sure how accurate that actually is. We'll go back next year and find out, I guess. But obviously, the general feel is that this is growing incredibly quickly. Actually, it's now growing much faster than we'd expected maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So it's a good space to be in. I suppose as well, from a personal point of view, I got to a point where I was pretty bored in my existing position and pretty much climbed the career ladder as far as I was going to go there. I really want to do something different and make an impact on the local economy as well, and do something good for Scotland with Dundee. So present games, you probably buy them for your Xbox and your PlayStation 3 on a DVD. You buy it from a shop like GameStation, and it comes in a box. And what we're seeing at the moment is a big transition towards the future of gaming, which is all online. It's all going to be digital. Thankfully for us in mobile, our product's always been digital. We've never had a disc in a box. Number one, that's a fantastic thing for us because we don't then have to pay a publisher or distributor to actually create the disc, create the manual. So the actual cost of entry is actually very low for us. We can create a game here, we can finish it on a Friday, upload it to Apple on Friday, and it can be live on the App Store on Monday, and we're making money immediately, which is really important for us. So this is the changing face of games, and because there's a lot of disruptive technology out there at the moment, a lot of the existing players, the EA, the Ubisofts, the big publishers, are really struggling to sort of fit out, work out where they fit within this model, which is great for some of the smaller companies like ourselves. So this is projected growth of online games, which is green. It's obviously growing. Downloadable games is growing quite slowly, but I think we'll start to see that increase again as the box games sort of drop off. How quickly the box games drop off, we don't know at the moment, but it seems to be accelerating. So in 5 years' time, perhaps you won't be able to walk into a shop and buy a game.
Wow.
We'll see. Certainly within 10 years, I think that would be the case. But what we're also seeing against this is that the prominence of things like Facebook. People are playing games on Facebook and paying less to play on their PlayStation 3 on their Xbox. So, games is kind of getting quite messy. And whereas before it was quite a very focused demographic, it was probably your 10 years to 25-year-old male, playing. It's now, everyone is playing games, which is great for us. This is where we started making games for traditional kind of like mobile phones. I can't remember what that is. It's like K750 Sony or something. And it was really difficult when we set up the business 4 years ago. For us to actually get a game onto this device and sell it, we had to go through Vodafone or Sprint or O2, one of the main network operators. But to actually get to these guys, we had to go through another publisher or distribution company. The problem with that is that obviously by the time it gets back to us, we're making a tiny amount of money on each download, which is...
What did you do with Vodafone?
With Vodafone, well, this is the problem we had basically, was to get to here, we had to go through these guys. When we set up, the likes of Vodafone wouldn't speak to us. We're 3 guys. We can do 1 game a year. They're just not interested.
So Vodafone Live.
Yeah, so we had to go, through, for example, like Red Boss in the Czech Republic, or iPlay that we've used in Europe as well. So we basically had to do a deal. So the more links in the value chain, the less money we make, basically. So what we find is actually with our first product, Dead Water, was that actually these guys, the publishers, were saying, well, actually, we like the game, it's quite good, but Dead Water, no one's heard of that. It's an original game concept. You need to put a brand on it. So could you put Titanic on it or something like that? So, and we were quite idealistic. We felt that really strongly we wanted to build our own original content. We didn't want to use a lot of licensed stuff, particularly at the start. And so we said, no, we don't want to do that. So it basically meant that we couldn't go through this route. And what we did then, without a route to market, is then approach some of the aggregators and distribution companies who maybe had like 1 deal with an operator within their local territory. So rather than doing 1 deal with publishing, we did about 50 globally. And we sold our game from China all the way through to the US and Canada. It was a lot of work for 3 people starting up. We had to make the game, we then had to market it, and then we had to sign all these distribution agreements. So it was a lot of work, but it meant that even if no one wanted to publish our game, which is a kind of traditional model, we could self-publish it. And that has really been the basis for the business ever since, really. The other problem with that model is that we can start production in month 1, we can launch it after 12 months, the publisher gets paid in month 16, and if we're lucky, we get paid in month 18. If you have 3 people with a very small company, you need a lot of money coming in, and that's terrible. To actually finance from month 1 to month 18 to the point you get paid was very difficult for us. So we had to find a way of making that shorter timeline. So iPhone has kind of changed things for us. I think it's changed it for a lot of games companies, where you can start product development, you can actually, because you're only focused on 1 device, you're not having to build for like 500 mobile phones, you can launch a lot quicker. So let's say you launch in month 7, and you actually get paid a month later. And Apple are great because they pay you every 30 days. So in terms of cash flow, it's fantastic. Also because there are less links in the value chain, we make more money as well. So if we sell the game for £5, we'll make over £3, which is also fantastic. So we actually have to do less volume. I think a lot of people will complain about the App Store and say, there's so much content, it's really hard to actually sell the volume that we need. Actually, we find it's not too bad because actually we're making more money per download. In terms of our content strategy, it's kind of balancing the risk as well. We've talked about kind of working on work for hire, so we work for someone else. We've talked about doing our own original content, which is obviously high risk. We've also done some licensed content as well, so we've taken games from PC and other platforms and taken them across the mobile, and that's been quite a nice way of balancing the risk of doing our own content all the time. So only 1 in 10 games is a hit, which is a real problem for us, and it took a long time to get paid, and work for hire budgets were very low, and it was very competitive. When we launched Tag 4 years ago, most of the companies that we were competitive against have been in existence for about 10 years. So we achieved profitability in the 2nd year, and I think that's been really important for us. As a young company, I'd never run a business before. Mark had, previous to Tag, had run his own business, but we really focused on profitability over kind of out-and-out growth. So we did fund some of the growth externally, but we made sure that all our games at least broke even. So worst case scenario, everything was paying for itself. We made sure that we'd signed good deals with good profit margins. We walked away from bad deals. So there are a lot of bad deals we were offered where we would never have made any money. So we just walked away. We also maximise demand for some of the games as well. So